So this is a very friendly group, Prudence. We've had a little chat in your...
Oh, you've already exchanged recipes? I missed that. Oh. Best option? Something baked like this? Okay.
Thanks to our wonderful sound people.
Most definitely. Most
Yep.
definitely.
Thank you, Emily and Ty. Thank you. And thanks to Susan Post from Bookwoman. And around the corner there. And thanks to Prudence Arceneaux for inviting us. Yeah. Star of the evening, Prudence.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, it's
I
true.
don't think that's true. We have a few more seconds, so I'm waiting patiently.
Okay.
Yeah, I imagine there are a lot of people wandering. Yeah.
So I would like to mention that only when you appear with a musician as organized as Daryl do you get something like this to read from. Those of you who know me know that I frequently, Carrie, don't say anything, appear on a stage with like papers falling off the podium and scraps and something I just wrote on in the car, but Daryl made it neat for us, so thank you, Daryl. And
All right, 7 o'clock. Hello, everyone. I'm Prudence Arceneaux. I'm doing double duty tonight. I am the chair of creative writing, but I'm also the performer with Naomi tonight.
yay!
So I have to do my chair duties, right? So I thank you all for being here, number one. Any number of things you could have been doing, so I appreciate you coming out and being in community with us. A reminder, cell phones, just turn them down. Mom, turn yours down. Just checking. And we would love for you to take pictures, share it on our socials. We love having proof that we get to come together, right? And we get to be in these kind of vulnerable spaces with each other. So please share that. Let other people know what they're missing out on. Creative writing has a number of really great things going on this semester. We're changing some things up. Some things have some new names. We're inviting some different artists in because we want to make sure that we truly are connecting with community. So please connect with our socials so you can see all the things that we have going on. Naomi mentioned Susan is in the back to sell books after we're done. Naomi, I assume you will be there to sign books and share in that with people as well. And again, if you haven't been to Bookwoman, what are you doing? Come on. Just saying, you should go. You should be there. There are so many great events happening, and Bookwoman is one of those places in our community that keeps us rooted. So please make sure that you check it out and take the time to talk to Susan on your way out this evening. Our event this evening is an opportunity for us to sit with each other, to sit with our memories, to make hope for the future. And I hope that while you are listening to us, while you are with us, that you are able to feel that you are connected with us as we feel that we are connected with you. That's the end of my department chair duties. I should thank the liberal arts, because now my boss is watching and I'll be in trouble. I should thank ADM because they're allowing us to use this amazing space. Again, if you have food or drink, please be careful because Nicole will come after me. And I want to thank Tori, who's the hourly for the creative writing department, who has helped to put this together. And I want to thank Amber, who's an adjunct, who was kind enough to help you all get into the doors to get in here. I'm going to turn it over to Naomi to lead us into this event.
Thank you so much for that welcome, Prudence. And sometimes Prudence and I reminisce about where we first met, and it was at another campus of Austin Community College. So it feels very special to be back here with you. And extremely special to have the wonderful Daryl Mayer, who works at St. Andrew's Episcopal School, and to share his wonderful music with our poems and with you. He invited me a few years ago to visit St. Andrews, and I just realized that centerpiece position that the music, drumming, world drumming teacher has on a campus. He was like being followed by all the kids everywhere. It was so fantastic to be at your campus with you, Daryl. But thank you for being so generous to poets and being willing to play with us. Daryl is currently working on a solo album called Utopia Station. And don't you think he should premiere it in Utopia, Texas? I think it's a must. Yeah, you should. Maybe we can get the BBC to write about that. Daryl's from England, and Austin is lucky to have him. Do you want to say anything? Or?
No, I just amazing to be amazing poets to my left and right, and I just wait to.
And I would just like to say, I want to just say gratitude to Austin. I feel like I have been coming here since I was in high school, when my family first moved to Texas, and Austin always had that, a cultural mystique for me, a kind of creative mystery. I would come here before I could drive with friends who could drive and just look at all the little shops. And driving around here today, I was just feeling very grateful to have a long relationship with a place that I never lived. So thank you, Austin, for being so friendly to so many people over the years. And I also want to say that as a Palestinian American, I've been writing every day fervently and full of grief and sorrow and sense of loss and rage and also a feeling of deep frustration about who is listening to all of the outcries about wanting human beings to do better things together than fight. And I'm not going to read any of those new pieces tonight, because the title for our gathering was Coming Home from Far Away. And I feel like exactly the opposite has been happening. People have been being pushed out of home too far away. And so there were no pieces, particularly maybe one, that will sneak in here tonight. But I do think it's an important time for people to be sharing their voices and acknowledging how grieved we are about these circumstances. My Jewish friends are as full of grief as my Arab friends, if not more so, and we're all just in this feeling of helplessness. So not only send out a moment of silence to Gaza, but that's appropriate, but like a year of care in the air. I'd been working with a lot of kids in Gaza through Zoom, through literacy programs, all through the COVID first years until now, and therefore have been very close to teachers and librarians and young poets and a lot of people there. And many people in the group called We Are Not Numbers, which unfortunately has not been shown to be the case lately. So if you want to go on to a site that is very human and just seems like reading a literary magazine at a school you love, go to the site We Are Not Numbers and read some of the postings that have been up there for years now. And many of the people in charge of that are no longer with us. So anyway, deepest grief for humans in the world. May we all figure out a way to come home from far away and give up this senseless crushing of lives. So, welcome.
A 1,000 miles. I stood in the grass, head far back, wishing on stars, streetlights from a million broken highways that mangled my search, tore my map. I wasn't making good time anyway. The maroon sky slowly tugged me into sleep, and the conditioned air had begun to taste like the sweat that eased down my forehead, down between my breasts. By the time I reached Clarendon, The music had run out of meaning. And no matter what the sign said, I don't recall when the scenery changed and left me here. This is the last time I'll hit Oakley Union, and I can't stop again until I get to Bowie. So I have to make the most of this rest stop midnight view of river, mountain, restroom stalls, the smell of disinfectant making me think of oranges. It's the same thing at every one of these stops since Albuquerque. The way I stare into the distance, hoping the sand will rise in a wave and wash me back, where I might have belonged in a different time as a different person. But my friends tell me the Cowboys are looking better every year in Houston, and it's about time I returned home, which has always been familiar, bordering on monotonous. I walk back to my car, and as I fold myself in, I try to remember why I know a song about a yellow rose in Texas and nothing about bluebonnets. I was thinking about that idea of coming back from far away, and Albuquerque wasn't too far away, but in terms of culture, it was vastly different from Houston. And I started thinking about this idea of the journey of those miles and how we feel them in the cars, we feel them in the motion, and the music that Daryl gave. It just keeps reminding me of the sound of the tires as you just keep trying to cover those miles, hoping that something looks different every time you stop. Departure. Packing to leave, I found the picture you sent from London. The caryatids appeared soft in the black and white of the constant drizzle. I imagine the grass bending to the rain in crisp notes that sound like spring. My faith in anything only goes so far, gathered in letters and photos in that box on the shelf. I held you there with the memories of the land that swallowed me in moist embraces. I thought maybe your season had come. Not really a winter of white or ice, but whatever gripped that moment for you, of moving water, reflecting gold into the low line of your eyes. Turns out, those caryatids lasted longer than your resolve, which crumbled and left me, with my faith gone. Maybe each of us holds a cold softness in our hearts. I know that I am supposed to wish for rain living in this area, but coming from Houston, I feel like I've had enough rain. So every time it rains and I say I don't like the rain, everyone is horrified that I don't want more rain. But I think it's once we get used to a kind of weather, it's harder for us to see the other kinds of weather and what they do to us. Human geography. We are stretched across borders. Parched, we gape for each other. What words we remember are lost in the static of the air. What we have forgotten is weather. I am cracked and weighted. We search for song, for water to rise and drown, but are borne down by my weight. We hope you recover your voice, but droughted, you don't even know clouds, though they hang above us. We can only point into their blank bellies, like cavern tapping, into the smooth black above the blue, mouths open. I know they hold no relief. Yet somehow, yesterday, we did remember wind. Devils and tumbles hugged us and spun us so, the black above and the wordless words within are only as important as the skin we hold softly to our bones. So my mom has always said that I didn't write poems about her, that I always wrote about my dad. And my sister tried to get my mom to understand that most of the time people die in my poems, so you wouldn't want to be in them. At the time that I was working on this piece, it seemed like a thing to ask a mother figure. Agency. I almost didn't make it home last night. I sat at the new table, thinking what it could be that held me here. You would say gravity, but it must be something stronger. And I thought on that for a bit, finally getting up to work my legs to the equation, back and forth, in a line that would never be straight. But the hitch in my left leg always interrupted the thoughts. Outside, I knew there was the kind of sky that could take me in, hold me, twirl me like a dancer, the color of what my little girl ideas once were. But now, the minty black holds a little less than half. If you ask this body, it's far too much. I still had to walk under the sky to get home, the color molding to my shoulders, the pressure bending any joint that wished to be bent. Mama, is it enough that my dreams come to me in white with an outline of gray? What I dreamt the night before doesn't matter, but I remember fading into the threads of my sheets, seeking the smell of this one body in the fibers, scenting my body as only a stranger would, or a man. When the sky shifted to a light, I felt my body rise from the inside, only to fall over the right edge. That's the side I sleep on, you understand, to keep my loving hand free. Mama, I don't know what happens at night. The sounds of misplaced vents and replaced pipes makes a hiss like you made when I was younger. Only this goes on and on. The voices of the children downstairs, that's how I know when to start breathing again. That's the part that doesn't make sense. That rising and falling under slatted light was easier than this. In the middle of the day, between listening and hearing, I wonder if I really do it. Or do I move my mouth, my nose, my chest to make it all go on? Mama, can I repeat what echoes in my head? I'm tired. This body's all wrong for me. This body rattles of old machines and hums like the sky after thunder. Where are my freckles? My smile of teeth hollow and clear like gems. Where's that place you told me would draw the sun in? A center, you called it, that would allow anything to drill right into me, leaving behind a trail like a track in snow. I need to know because it's open and the wind moves through it and leaves nothing behind. These feet couldn't make the journey I'd planned. Somewhere I could find huge spaces of water and keep on walking right in. I had a plan that if I could see the sky with a different angle of light, something else could take me in. But these feet, with these sharp ankles and their brittle blade bones, could only bring me here like pigeons or cats. They know all the turns and stretches, and they knew just where to stop in the kitchen, by the stove.
Thank you, Prudence. Oh, we forgot to mention we'll be doing 2 sets each, and one, and one, and then a final poem together. Thank you, Prudence. I love those poems. This week, Carrie Fountain has a poem in the New Yorker, You Belong to the World. And I read it to a conference here in Austin last week. And I just felt how much we needed that poem, Carrie, because these days there are a lot of ways to feel like, I don't belong to this world. I don't want to belong to this world. Today, when an 8-year-old started interrogating me about my upcoming presidential vote, I felt very traumatized. But I was at this conference where I read Carrie's poem, and it's beautiful. Look it up. You belong to the world. And it was a Middle East discussion hour, or 2 hours, and they were just going around the circle, and everybody was saying like 1 or 2 sentences. And the woman on my left simply said, "But the children." And then it was my turn. And I just said, "Yes, the children." And for all of us who have felt, and I felt this in your poem, this last poem, Prudence, like we relate to the world through apprehensions we had during our own childhoods or through all the children we've had the privilege of knowing since then. It's really traumatic. This is called Pollen. When weeds eat the playhouse, what does that say about the family? The ball left at the base of the tree loses its breath, shrinking into a stump or clump of dirt. And the mole comes, and the earth drums up into little mounds nobody kicks. Then what year is it? Maybe the door to the big house opens and a man comes out. A woman comes out, drying her hands. Dinner is almost ready, but there's no one else to eat it besides the man and the woman. Maybe only the woman. Or there's no dinner. The door to the playhouse stuck open, not swinging, and light comes through, replete with pollen of cedar and foxglove. And something else is going to be planted in the ditch, by the road, on the bank of the river, but there will not be a child to tell its story. How will that change the story? If the fox puts on her lavender gloves just as you shut your eyes, if in the night something touches your sleeping cheek and startles you, and it is the fox, but you forgot to offer her tea in the playhouse, then what year would you be sipping? What would that say about the person you became? I guess I've always loved the spaciousness most in Texas, and you don't feel it so much anymore driving between San Antonio and Austin, but you do feel it driving west or driving east. My husband and I spent his birthday in Flatonia. It was amazing. I strongly recommend 2 days and a night in Flatonia. And going to Big Bend used to be one of our favorite places to go. Stars over Big Bend. Maybe we first met this arching dome in dreams of what a life could be. Sheer spaciousness, before hope bent backward too many times, breaking news, breaking us. In the vast immensity, a breath feels more at home, released into place. Never mind which star might be dead, how long ago it died. Don't want to know. Light taking forever to get here, more precious when it arrives. Far-ranging, brilliance to quietude, legacies of patience, belonging, disappearing. And if the stars do not remember us, they act otherwise. Time's low note. When the giant moon rises over the river, the cat stretches, presses himself to the window, croons. He needs to go outside into dark grass to feel the mystery combing his fur. The wind never says, "Call me back, I'll be waiting for your call." All we know about wind's address is somewhere else. A peony has been trying to get through to you. When's the last time you really looked at one? Billowing pinkish, whitish petals, lushly layered, might be the prime object of the universe. Peonies in a house profoundly uplift the house. Never say no to peonies. Some days, reviewing everything from Brain's balcony, filigree of thinking, a calm comes in. You can't fix the whole street, change the city or the world, but clearing bits of rubbish possible, moving one stone. My best friend, poet from San Antonio, Jenny Brown, is currently the Seamus Heaney Scholar at Queen's University in Belfast. She and I both really love Belfast a lot, and last time I was there, I was taken to meet Father Jerry Reynolds, who had been very crucial person in the evolving and solving of troubles in Belfast. And I was very touched to get to meet him at all, and he was so generous. And before I left, he grabbed both my hands and said, "But we have to pray for Palestine." So this is dedicated to him. He died shortly after that visit for Palestine. You. How lonely the word peace is becoming, missing her small house under the olive trees. The grandmothers carried her in a bucket when they did their watering. She waited for them in the sunrise, then fell back into reach. Whole lives unfolded. The uncles tucked her into suit coat pockets after buttoning white shirts for another day. Fathers, mothers, babies heard her whispering in clouds over Palestine, mingling softly, making a promise, sending her message to the ground. It wasn't a secret. Things will calm down soon, she said. Hold your head up. Don't forget. When Ahed went to prison, we shook our tired hands in the air and wept. Young girl, dreaming of a better world. Don't shoot her cousins, my cousins, our cousins. Wouldn't you slap for that? It was only a slap. The word peace, a ticket elsewhere for some. People dream night and day of calmer lives. Maybe peace would be their ticket back too. They never threw away that hope. Karmic wheel, great myth of fairness kept spinning. I dreamed of Ahed's hair. When I was born, they say a peaceful breeze lilted the branches. My first lullaby. The temperature dropped. A voice pressed me forward, told me to speak. Being raised in a house of stories with garlic gave me courage. Everything began far, far away, long, long ago. And everything held us close. Is this your story or mine? Olive oil lives in a dented can with a long spout. What happens to peace when people fight? She hides her face. What does she dream of? Better people. Does she ever give up? Sometimes she feels very lonely on the earth. She wants to walk openly with children, live the way they might, have a party with white cookies on simple plates, lots of them, nuts chopped fine. She wants everyone to share. Well, the next one's a little lighter, I think. I hope. Weirdly, I received a letter from the friend that I'm referring to in this poem only yesterday. And we really haven't spent much time together in 50 years, so it was a little shocking because I knew I was going to read this poem tonight, and I have not sent it to her, but she's in it. But it's true what I say in the last line of this poem about her, because her whole letter was directing me according to some angels she's in touch with in Las Vegas. That's all I can say. Okay. Guinea pig. My mother and her friends wished to visit the clairvoyant they'd heard about, so they sent me to test her out. A humble wooden home on a street named for a tree. I didn't drive yet. I asked my friend to drive me. This was not a new thing for my mother. She'd also sent me to the Hindu breathing Swami, the Filipino faith healers, always first as her personal guinea pig. My mother waited in the darkened living room. My friend waited in the darkened living room. I was escorted to another parlor by a man in a sleeveless undershirt, then seated in a chair. The clairvoyant, who charged $5, said, "I'd like to talk about your friend out there." "Yes?" She was a plump grandmotherly woman in a printed dress. Her mother just died, and she's grieving terribly. She was asked to drive her mother across the border for treatment, and it didn't work. Tell her she did everything she could. Her mother is fine. Her mother is with her all the time. You must promise to tell her the moment you leave. Right now, she has many more problems than you. I was stunned. The facts of this were true. She stared at me somewhat disinterestedly. I see books coming out of your hands. What does this mean? Do you love books? I see your grandmother across the ocean in a long dress. She can't read, and she loves you very much. Take time for her. She's important. And don't marry that professor everyone likes. Something's not right about him. You'll find your way. An hour of details later, I staggered back to the living room, notes I scribbled gripped in my hand, to find my friend nearly comatose on the couch. I told her the moment we drove away, "This is good news. Your mother is here." My friend dropped out of college after that freshman year and has let the angels guide her all her life. How to paint a donkey. She said the head was too large, the hooves too small. I could clean my paintbrush, but I couldn't get rid of that voice. While they watched, I crumpled him, let his blue body stain my hands. I cried when he hit the can. She smiled. I could try again. Maybe this is what I unfold in the dark, deciding for the rest of my life. That donkey was just the right size. We live in an old neighborhood between the river and the creek. And if you haven't walked on the San Pedro Creek in San Antonio yet, it's given that river walk a little run for its money. It's pretty great. Come down and walk. We feel like our house now is between these two corridors of water. It's a good feeling. Because you couldn't walk on San Pedro Creek before. But it has changed. It's come alive. Alphabet. One by one, the old people of our neighborhood are going up into the air. Their yards still wear small white narcissus, sweetening winter. Their stones glisten under the sun. But one by one, we are losing their house coats, their formal phrasings, their cupcakes. when I string their names on the long cord, when I think how there is almost no one left who remembers what stood in that brushy spot 90 years ago, when I pass their yards and the bare peach tree bends a little, when I see their rusted chairs sitting in the same spots, what will be forgotten falls over me like the sky over our whole neighborhood, or the time my plane circled high above our street, the roof of our house dotting the tiniest eye. Thanks, Daryl. Prudence. Thank you all. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
I come from farmers on both sides, and my father was very intent upon passing down some knowledge to my sister and to me. My sister and I failed miserably at the farming part of it. There are some things I took in, mostly that I don't want to do it. And I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't get another house. Like, I have friends here who are like, you said you wouldn't get another house, and I got another house. Which means I have to do more yard stuff. It feels like it's in me. I feel like I know what to do, even if I don't want to. This is the summer of growing grass. Farming, my neighbor says, a chancy sport of luck and hope. As I stand in the sun, I feel how the heat settles into the dark circles under my eyes, the broken rose of my brow. This is the work of a nursemaid. You wake early, eat the air, sleeves rolled, and you can't help but sigh when you see the earth hasn't drunk enough. You can't think of what you could have done differently. The sun has only begun its job when you first wake to yours. You see, this is a business. The sun, the salesman of light and life, and you, the broker of guess and mistakes. Were I a vain woman, I would say I like the way the sun turns my hair, how it deepens the red in my skin. But I'm watching water. I'm counting days and working on my poor man's frown. I know this poem should have a title, and it doesn't. And I can recall sitting in many a workshop being told I had to have titles, and my students will know. I'll say you have to have a title. And my act of rebellion was to pick random numbers. This one's 154. Death has a pleasing taste, smoky and sharp, minty, like a good-sized chunk of ice that your lips can barely close around, and waiting, steamy minute after minute, for your saliva to smooth the corners, melt it to a sliver hiding on the dip of your tongue. The blessing of the numbness reminds God that in his mercy, he has created a flavor his people crave, and yet cannot recall the feel of it, giddy within their mouths, sweet to sensitive teeth, rough to hollowed throat. I've spent my whole life near trains, somehow, some way, they're always there. Sorry, I have to make a tangent. I worked at Astroworld when I was younger. For those of you who don't recall, it was a Six Flags amusement park in Houston, and it just so happened that I ended up working on the train. And I know, I was on the train. So if you're of a certain age, I probably yelled at you to stop running. The thing I learned was the horn sounds that annoy us so much are actually a language. And I began to take in that language. The poem that I've written here, it's in 4 parts, and each part is part of the train song that the trains will sing, will speak when they are moving throughout the world. I also want to say this is a poem for my Aunt Trish. Each of us has an event in our lives that after the event occurs, in some sense we forget what life was like before that. It is a clear demarcation. And this aunt's death from cancer is that event for me. Train song in 4 parts for Trish. 3 short, backing up. The car is moving through fog like old syrup. Listen to the distance in the dark. Says she's looking for the green reflection of eyes. Cats, deer, dogs. I want to reach over, take her hands from the wheel. I don't want to live this way. Fear of life, speed, reflection, animals. Faster, I think. We must go as fast as it eats at her. One short, ready. Red moon out, a sign that what is lost was lost for me and replaced. Natural progression to anger gives us safety time when the heat cools below my eyes, past the line of sight of my nipples, as slanted as that line may be. Too short, going. I chose to be in the middle of the tunnel, darkest here in the middle of the sentence, unsure of its ending, where it is the coolest. Sweat becomes a sheen, yet not smelling of the stagnant water resting between the ties. Train humming in the distance, not at the entrance, still like my body shaking. Hands fading to the brown of the wood, the bleached rocks, oil like blood in open veins, seeps through the fabric of my skin, presses up through my gnawing fingers. Two long, one short, one long. Thinking of Russia, endless nights, cold water. Hell is different for each of us. Before Brodsky died, he said the horns sound so human, so sad. And I stand beyond the road and count. Two long, one short, one long. I'm coming to a crossing and going on through. For those who don't know me, I'm a space nerd. And if I could, I would love to work in the space industry, but bad eyesight and math is hard. I don't know what to do with numbers. So I began thinking about this idea of like, what could I do for NASA? And I realized NASA needs a poet laureate. NASA needs poets. What I wouldn't give for the chance to sail the void. I'd let myself get yawed, learn more languages. I'm already fluent in English and grief. Learn how to vomit in a bag to shield myself from too much light. I've trained my whole life to live in confined space. But I'll settle for being the first person to talk up the musky promises of Terran land under Grand Canyon red Martian skies. Debate on CNN which atmosphere is most toxic, Venus or Earth. Oh, to be a meteorologist of Jupiter. Surely I can be right 30% of the time. Stargazer that I am, a title I'd name tag even were I naked. I'm sure I should know names and distances, but I'll gladly quilt degrees and magnitudes on the insides of my eyelids. I'll start every poem with the image of the star-eating black hole, burping 4 million tons of life stuff, silently shouting heartbeats in future tense. Truly, I was born with an understanding of the subtleties of darkness and a need to know. Can you see hate from space? I want to proclaim the truth of dark matter. Yes, your Lord said, "Let there be light," but there is so much more that is dark, terrifyingly simple, not knowing what is true north other than what we've said of, we have been wrong, again. To be the harbinger of our savage hunger when we make it to Europa and taint its amniotic seas, extol the paths of dark energy that weave through the light, making highways, making signposts we should follow. Does it matter what Pluto is if we don't know what we are? Make Make whispers revelations in my ears. You'll see. They'll want me to be on the payroll as we expand into the never-ending, 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 never.
Wow. Thank you, Prudence. You know, and reading your poems on the page, which, as you know, I love so much, it really is different hearing them with music. It's a different experience getting to be with Daryl and the music. Thank you so much for those poems. I just love them. Thank you, Daryl. Wow.
That music was by Brian Eno, Deep Blue Day. Anyone recognize that? Yeah. Seven, at least 6 or 7.
This is a good audience, sweet audience. Wow. So right now I'm part of a really fun two-week project through a place called the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley. I mean, when they called me, who would say no? I said, okay, what do we do? And they said, well, every day your assignment is to do something that made you happy as a child for 2 weeks. And then on the day after 2 weeks, we'll interview you. And you have to keep a document like what you did every day and how you felt doing it now or any thoughts you had. And so what I'm doing today is reading poems out loud because I loved that as a child too. But tomorrow I'm playing my keyboard for like an hour, just playing around, because that was a very good place as a child. So this is called Duets. My mother's strong hands on the keyboard were a comfort zone. I sat on her left, always playing the lower notes. There was no sadness at the keys, only a pilgrimage toward calm. There we go, she'd say, making it through a difficult passage. Or, ah, at the end of a piece we knew well. Sometimes we played a page over and over to polish its heart. We loved the lost chord and tried to find it for many years. pizzicato possibilities, arpeggio challenges, staccato surprise, grace note riffs, the language of music. A comfort. I wanted an andante day. As a little girl, she taught herself to play when her father wouldn't let her take lessons, made a long paper keyboard out of cardboard on her floor. She read a book from the library to learn. Wasn't that hard? It was all hard. How could you learn if you couldn't even hear it? Beethoven went deaf. Right, but he already knew how to play. She said there was always a way. And when I was in that Middle East circle last week here in Austin, a woman in the circle said, well, this whole thing started on October 7th. And I said, And I know that's really rude to make a sound when someone else is turn to speak, but everybody looked at me then and I felt guilty, but So this poem is written in my father's voice. He was made a refugee in 1948 and stayed in the West Bank where his family continues to live, and many of them, and some here in Austin too. And the title of this poem was I found in his notebook after he died, and I did a series of poems that surprised me because I used titles from his notebooks. The poems came out in his voice, which only seemed fair. But so this is imagining his voice in 1948. Everything in our world did not seem to fit. That was the title. Once they started invading us, taking our houses and trees, drawing lines, pushing us into tiny places. It wasn't a bargain or deal or even a real war. To this day, they pretend it was. But it was something else. We were sorry what happened to them, but we had nothing to do with it. You don't think what a little plot of land means till someone takes it and you can't go back. Your feet still want to walk there. Now you are drifting, worse than homeless dust, very lost feeling. I cried even to think of our hallway, cool stone passage inside the door. Nothing would fit for years. They came with guns, uniforms, declarations. Life magazine said, it was surprising to find some Arabs still in their homes. Surprising? Where else would we be? Up on the hillsides? Conversing with mint and sheep? Digging in dirt? Why was someone else's need for a home greater than our own need for our own homes we were already living in? No one has ever been able to explain this sufficiently, but they find a lot of other things to talk about. Dearest son, at least when I die, I won't have to be sad about missing you. We're already in practice. And at least this isn't the first year you were gone. Last year was more shocking. What did we even do? We may have collapsed in the silverware drawer the entire day. By now you're not first in the exit line. I guess that softens the blow, though considering the other grieving mothers and fathers does not. Please be nice to all the boys from Gaza who look like you. We can never claim to understand anything ever again. Now we could have rain, a fat rose, a bowl of soup, an apple tart, jazz in the background, and still feel entirely lost. It's not like you left and the world continued. It's like you left and you were the world. The next, thanks. The next poem quotes my Siti, my Palestinian grandmother. And she said this when she was 103. She lived to be 106. Rather wildly vigorous until her death. But when she was 103, she said, "I always wait for the morning, but don't know why the morning never comes." And she said it in Arabic. So this poem is called Waiting for Morning. My Palestinian grandma, who prayed 5 times a day, even her devotion couldn't bring the morning bigger than sunshine. Was she waiting for roads to open, blockades to disappear, flurries of almond blossoms showering upon the road? Turn left to Ramallah, then south to Jerusalem. Tear gas was not her language. When gassed in her own room by soldiers in uniform, she said to me in Arabic, "Never mind, they're lost." She wanted to find her old house, still murmuring her name in its wrought iron handrail, broad stairs shining. The rooms she never wanted to leave, still gleaming in the light. So that's for everybody who dreams of a home. Who's at the Texas border tonight? I realized this next poem, practicing it and then thinking of being here with Prudence, I thought, well, man, this is only one little tiny slant on the story of how Texas felt 50 years ago. But I know there were other slants, and they're still there. Texas. The days were so hot, you could walk out of your house and disappear, return as a puff of smoke. Blooming vines shriveled on a fence while you were gone. I loved the old raggedy streets, lost edges of time, oddities. World's largest pecan, proudly inhabiting Seguin's town square. There weren't as many people, guns, or human nuts back then. Not as many flags or fanatics. But I do recall the church where people spoke in tongues, waved their arms, screamed Jehovah, then later asked my dad in a normal voice if he wanted to grab a bite. My parents bought the first house they looked at. Of course they did. This was how they rolled, though they thought holy rollers were extreme. They didn't pass a lot of judgment, though. Women held hands in our living room. My pals talked to my dad about pot. I wouldn't touch pot or take an aspirin. A bit Amish by nature, I absorbed the whole Earth catalog, planned a teepee, sewed a quilt. Texas had room for everybody back then. It seemed important to pronounce Blanco Road correctly. Shoulders. A man crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him. No car drive too near to his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo, but he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say, fragile, handle with care. His ear fills up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We're not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide. The rain will never stop falling.
I should back announce that was written by Craig Heller Johnson. That piece of music.
This is such a beautiful piece of music.
Morning.
Thanks to Craig. Yeah. And thanks again to you, Daryl. And this is a little 2 poems, and then our last poem together. But this is for a special place in San Antonio that I've had trouble going in recent years, just because for some reason it was my father's absolutely favorite place in San Antonio. And he always insisted on going there. And it is a fun place. It's called Chicho Brothers Fruit and Vegetable. We'd sip gin at a cafe on the river, pretending our lives were that fluid, that fine. Once he said, I need to see the fruit and vegetable place one more time. So I drove him to Laredo Street, but the store was locked. Power outage. He said, that's how I feel. Loss of power. We drove around staring at crumbled houses, trash heaps, potholes. That's how I felt. All of it. We drove back past Chicho's. Lights were on again. He stepped inside so tenderly, as if entering a shrine, placed his hand on a mountain of grapefruit, and bought nearly nothing, because by then he had almost no time. Chicho Brothers fruit and vegetable number 2. 6 lemons for $1, said the sign. I was thinking of you. Absent-mindedly, I threw 13 lemons into a bag. At the checkout, the woman said, "How many lemons?" I said, 6. It was obvious there were more than that. She stared at me hard. Startled, I laughed. They watch me closely at Chicho's now. Cilantro, garlic, broccoli. Come back, come back. Thank you all so much for being such a great audience. Don't you think, Prudence?
Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
So this last piece, Naomi and I are going to trade off a little bit in this one. It's by W.S. Merwin. And you just told me today, a friend of Austin.
he loved Austin. He read here many times. And the HRC owns some of his letters. A lot more of his letters as of recently. So if any of you go over there, you could read them. He loved coming here. He thought the audiences were great here. The people were great here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you all.
So, yeah, he was right. He was right. And it was always fun to be here with him. So this poem is variously called, if you look in different places, Thank You or Thanks. We're not really sure, but we're giving you both the titles.
I'll
to
go
cover
with
the
thank you
base.
on this one.
As we thank you. And thank him forever for everything he wrote. Yeah.
Thank you. Listen, with the night falling, we are saying thank you. We are stopping on the bridges to bow from the railings. We are running out of the glass rooms with our mouths full of food to look at the sky and say thank you. We are standing by the water, thanking it, standing by the windows, looking out in our directions.
Back from a series of hospitals, back from a mugging, after funerals, we are saying thank you. After the news of the dead, whether or not we knew them, we are saying thank you.
Over telephones, we are saying thank you. In doorways, in the backs of cars, and in elevators, remembering wars and the police at the door and the beatings on stairs, we are saying thank you. In the banks, we are saying thank you. In the faces of the officials and the rich and of all who will never change, we go on saying thank you. Thank you.
With the animals dying around us, our lost feelings, we are saying thank you. With the forests falling faster than the minutes of our lives, we are saying thank you. With the words going out like cells of a brain, with the cities growing over us, we are saying thank you faster and faster. With nobody listening, we are saying thank you. We are saying thank you and waving, dark though it is.